President Mohammad Nasheed attends the groundbreaking ceremony of Lundufushi luxury villa sale project. Lundufushi Resort, being developed as 12 Blues Maldives, will feature 40 luxury villas that will be offered for sale. The groundbreaking ceremony was held this afternoon on the island during the President's visit. The island is being developed by 12 Blues Hotels and Resorts, a joint venture between local and international investors. Now we take a look at news from the international arena. China works to calm nerves on Tuesday as it gathered with Asian neighbors, the US and other countries in Hanoi for a security meeting amid tensions over Beijing's recent attempts to assert more control over disputed territory on the high seas. Several countries in the region have expressed concern over increasingly aggressive maritime moves by China, including events surrounding a collision last month in the East China Sea that plunged relations between China and Japan to a 5-year low. Defense ministers from the 10-member Association of Southeast Asian Nations, along with their counterparts from the United States, China, Russia, Japan, Australia, New Zealand, India and South Korea attended the meeting on Tuesday in Vietnam's capital, Hanoi. Chinese General Liang Guangli said on Tuesday in a speech to his counterparts that his country's development of their defense capabilities were not aimed at threatening anyone, but to ensure its security and promote international and regional peace and stability. Later on that day, the defense ministers signed a consensus on identifying priorities on areas of cooperation. Ministers agreed to work in 5 areas: humanitarian and disaster relief, maritime security, counter-terrorism, military medicine, and peacekeeping operations. The United States is worried that China's increasingly aggressive claims to disputed island chains could disrupt shipping or even ignite a shooting war. Last month, China and Japan sparred over a collision between a Chinese trawler and 2 Japanese patrol boats off disputed islands in the East China Sea, claimed by both countries. Japan detained the Chinese boat captain, enraging Beijing, which suspended ministerial-level talks with Tokyo and postponed talks on jointly developing undersea gas fields. He was eventually released, and last week the 2 countries agreed to resume high-level talks, but each continues to claim the territory. Japanese Defense Minister Toshimi Kitazawa and Liang met on Monday in Hanoi. Kitazawa asked for cooperation on the creation of a communication system that could be used following maritime accidents, according to Japan's defense ministry. A Greek tanker collided with a container ship 20 miles off the Dutch coast on Tuesday and briefly leaked jet fuel into the North Sea. The crew of the Mindoro was able to pump the remaining fuel into an undamaged part of the ship, ending the leak, and the situation was under control. A Coast Guard spokesman said that an oil spill control boat was on its way to the stricken tanker as a precaution. A Coast Guard tugboat also was heading to the scene. Nobody was injured on either of the ships. The Mindoro dropped its anchor and was waiting for experts to investigate whether it was safe to return to the port. The container ship involved in the collision but was not seriously damaged. The Coast Guard said it was not immediately clear how the collision happened. Cyprus Merchant Shipping's department said the 5-year-old York Ranger had 12 crew members aboard, including Russian, Ukrainian and Filipino nationals, and sustained minor damage to its bow. Cypriot and Greek authorities were discussing who would head an investigation since the collision occurred in international waters. A train crashes into a crowded bus in eastern Ukraine on Tuesday, killing 40 people and leaving 11 in critical condition. The Interior Ministry said the accident occurred outside the town of Marhanets after the bus attempted to cross the track, ignoring a siren that indicated an oncoming train. Rescuers, medics and investigators are working at the scene of the crash. All the casualties were on the bus. President Viktor Yanukovych declared a national day of mourning on Wednesday. Prime Minister Mykola Azarov ordered his government to pay each family of the dead victims $12,600 as compensation. He also instructed transport officials to install automated crossing gates at all the nation's railway crossings to prevent cars, buses and trucks from ignoring the siren. Road and railway accidents are common in Ukraine, where the roads are in poor condition, vehicles are poorly maintained, and drivers and passengers routinely disregard safety and traffic rules. A van crammed with farm workers crashes head-on into a truck in central Poland on Tuesday after apparently trying to overtake another vehicle in dense fog. This accident killed all 18 people on board. The truck driver suffered minor injuries. The van was designed to carry goods and hold up to 6 people, yet 3 times as many were squeezed in on wooden boxes and planks without seat belts. The van was apparently trying to pass a third vehicle when the accident occurred. 14 of the victims were men and 4 were women. The passengers were seasonal workers being driven to an orchard in one of Poland's best-known apple and plum growing regions. Prosecutor Figa said the van was a Volkswagen transporter with only 6 seats and that the 42-year-old driver was probably the van's owner. Figa said prosecutors were investigating the crash and examining both vehicles for any technical problems. 2 passengers initially survived with serious injuries and were taken to a hospital, but they both died there. The truck driver was hospitalized with slight injuries and shock. Authorities called for 3 days of mourning in the Mazovia region. Rescuers on Monday finished reinforcing the hole drilled to bring 33 trapped miners to safety in Chile and sent a rescue capsule nearly all the way to where the men were trapped, proving that the escape route works. That means, if all goes well, everything will be in place at midnight on Wednesday to begin pulling the men out. The lead psychologist for the rescue team recommended the extractions begin at dawn on Wednesday, but no official decision have been made. On Monday, the Phoenix 1 capsule, the biggest of 3 built by Chilean Navy engineers, made its first test run after the top 180 feet of the shaft was encased in tubing. Then the empty capsule was winched to 1,000 feet, just 40 feet short of the shaft system that has been the miners' refuge. Even as rescuers firmed up their plans, other workers continued drilling. The mining rig known as Plane C kept getting closer to the miners, creating an alternative if something goes wrong with this week's rescue. Spirits are high above ground. Relatives of the trapped men has been anxiously waiting for over 2 months in Camp Hope, a small tent city set up next to the mine after a giant rock stranded their loved ones below ground on August 5th. The miners were discovered alive 17 days later. They will be lifted to safety one by one inside a rescue capsule that will need to travel 622 meters underground to reach the trapped miners. The journey to the surface is expected to take 20 minutes. After a quick on-site medical check, they will be flown by helicopter to the local hospital, where they will be put under observation in a ward as dark as a cinema. Copiapó's hospital is ready to receive the 33 men. Over the past week, all the miners underwent tests to assess their health. Chile's government has promised each miner at least 6 months of psychological support. Officials have drawn up a secret list of which miners should come out first, but the order could change after paramedics and a mining expert first descend in the capsule to evaluate the men and oversee the journey upwards. Chilean President Sebastián Piñera, who arrived in Ecuador for a state visit on Monday, said he was optimistic about the rescue effort.